A man becomes a critic when he cannot create art the same way a man becomes an informer when he cannot become a soldier. Today's review is Birdman, or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance. This is a 2014 winner for Best Picture, and this review costs me nothing. I love this movie. I think it's spectacular. One of the ballsiest movies, I'd say, to win the Best Picture Oscar, only because, I mean, the satire is pretty high in it, but it really takes some jabs at the industry. But, at the same time, how could this not appeal to the Academy? The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, it really does strike at the heart of art and artists and what exactly that means to people and what exactly they have riding on it, and countering that with art versus popularity, and how can they kind of meet in the middle or conflict entirely. So that's just among the few things this movie explores, with its main character, Michael Keaton, incredible in his role. I mean, I love Michael Keaton playing Regan Thompson, kind of the washed-up superhero actor who was once Batman. Oh, I'm sorry, Birdman. I mean, okay, that's one thing. It's really obviously supposed to be not Regan Thompson, Michael Keaton, and it's not supposed to be Birdman. It's supposed to be Batman, and there's a lot there too that's playing into his ego. I mean, with those Batman movies, I mean, that was even more than something like the Superman movies that preceded them. That was really like the first kind of explosion of how huge these superhero movies could be, and they even kind of make the comparison when there's a scene with a reporter saying how, okay, the stories of gods and man, it's not being told through mythology anymore, it's being told through superhero movies and laundry detergent commercials. So that kind of paved the way, and even as like the sort of voice in his head, the Birdman voice, you gave them the keys to the kingdom, and that schmuck in a tin can is making billions when you should be on top, things like that. So I mean, that really kind of like the Batman movies, they paved the way for the pop cultural climate that we're in right now, where it's it's all superhero movies. I mean, look at the roster for any movies this summer. It's probably at least half superhero movies. So I mean, there's that. But it's kind of his ego dealing with that and getting out of control. And one thing, just like from a very very general idea of this movie, what's kind of cool about it is that it is about this actor trying to reclaim his glory through a play. Writing, directing, producing, and starring in it. Raymond Carver play adaptation. And so with the movie's presentation, it's supposed to be, and through clever editing and hidden cuts, it's all a long continuous take. And so with that, it kind of has the same spirit as a play. So the whole movie revolves around this play, but it has the same kind of risks riding on it as a play would, where the actors got a play. It's this living, breathing thing. There is no take two. There is no let's fix it in post. It's right there. So I mean, there's a lot of risk in the actors fucking up, or in technical ways fucking up. I mean, obviously a movie is a lot more complex from a technical standpoint than to do a play. I mean, there's lighting and sets and whatever, but I can't imagine how it must have been. I haven't watched any making of the movie, but I'd imagine you have these guys running around in a panic with the camera and trying to get everything right, and the actors fucking up completely, and then you kind of even sort of sense partial fuck ups, but they kind of, I don't know, work them into the movie. You can kind of see someone flubbing, and you're like, okay, but they kept that in, whatever. But anyway, that's like a lot of pressure to like go through that whole thing. And if you fuck up, guess what? You're all doing it again, just like a play rehearsal would be. So I mean, there's that. So I think that's a really interesting aspect to it. But also in kind of the conflict that arises. Like, of course, we have Michael Keaton playing the Regan Thompson character, who's supposed to represent Michael Keaton, basically. So it's not really Birdman, it's Batman, basically. And at the same time, we have Edward Norton, who's sort of a version of Edward Norton. And we have this whole conflict that arises of the artist, the actor, versus the movie star, right? So, I mean, what's the difference between the two? And, both kind of resent each other. Like, it becomes kind of a clash of these two actors with two completely different philosophies and different different personal not vendettas, personal agendas riding on the success of this play. Even in the one scene where after the first rehearsal kind of gets fucked up, or the preview gets fucked up, they're walking in the street, of course, and he's like, oh, if this fucks up for you, you can go back to your Hollywood game and you can contribute to that cultural genocide, but I'm going to be on the stage long before you're gone, or whatever, forever, whatever he says, but, he kind of believes in true art and things like that. So, I mean, there's that very interesting clash that I think is kind of cool. And at the same time, the Regan Thompson character, he's trying to balance his personal life that's all like coming together within the rehearsals of this play, within his career, his ego, everything like that. So, of course, he has his current girlfriend who's telling him he's pregnant. Who's also acting in the play. And he has his ex-wife who's trying to be supportive and kind of sort of reminds him of who he used to be and what he wants to be. And he's his daughter who's his assistant who resents him terribly and accuses him of not even acknowledging this new pop culture kind of climate that the world is in, where he's mocking Twitter, Facebook. You don't even have a Facebook. There are people out there every day who are struggling for relevance, and you act like this world doesn't exist. So she kind of represents that new world that he doesn't want to see, that he doesn't want to acknowledge, that he doesn't want to be a part of, and he thinks everything can be settled through this play, but is that the case? So he has all this writing, and like I forget how he puts it, but he's like, I think this whole play is becoming my entire life, and it's hitting me in the balls with a tiny little pickaxe or something like that. It was really funny. I mean, the movie's really funny, really, really absurd, because there are parts where we kind of question the main character's sanity, which is always fun. Is he really controlling objects with his mind? Like, does he drop that spotlight onto the actor who's not to his liking, who's overacting and can't act worth shit? Is he moving around objects in his dressing room, or is he really throwing them around in a fit? Well, when we look away, and then Zach Galifianakis' character comes into the door, we kind of see maybe it's all been in his head. Is he flying around the city of New York, or is he really taking a cab? Is he jumping out a window, or is he flying out of it? I don't know. So there's that, and I think that's all really interesting. And all through the movie, the Birdman is talking in his head. He's like, "Oh, we used to be big. We should have done that reality show, whatever." And it's just like torturing him. The character's like teetering on his sanity, and has all this writing, and I think it all comes together brilliantly. And where I'll say spoilers in this review. Hopefully, I've already put a thing in the box or whatever, the comment description, whatever. But where the unexpected virtue of ignorance comes is that we kind of sense, well, he has a real gun at the end of the play, because the play involves suicide at the very end. So he shoots himself, but he doesn't kill himself. But through that, and through all, the struggles with the critics and everything like that, like, I mean, there's a great scene where he's arguing with the critic, and it's a funny scene, but at the same time, there's truth to it. He's like, you risk nothing. You say these are all just labels that you put on. This means nothing. You say nothing about intention. I'm an actor, goddammit. Throws the shot glass and breaks it, and she's like, I'm gonna destroy your play. So she's like, almost like the man on the mountain that he comes to challenge or whatever, and he can't quite do it. But in that ending scene, he kind of successfully achieves even more than he could have hoped for, in not just kind of regaining a huge popularity, but really committing to his art in the sense that, Mr. Thompson has created a new form of art, literal and figurative. Blood, sweat, and tears has been spilled on the stage, and he's respected as an actor in that sense. But in another sense, he's, that's his big comeback that everyone's talking about. And, his daughter opens up the Twitter for him, and he gets like thousands and thousands of followers in just one day. He's all over the news. He's all over the paper. He fucking did it. So, I mean, hey, good for him. And like in that last scene, it almost kind of reminds me a little bit of A Clockwork Orange, where like the main character, through all their suffering, makes a suicide attempt and doesn't succeed, but at the same time, just by complete accident, by maybe a virtue of ignorance, as it's supposed, they come out successful. But then, I mean, there is that last scene that people will kind of debate about. What exactly does it mean? Interpret it in certain ways. And I've seen the movie 3 times now, and part of me kind of wants to cop out and say, oh, well, it's up to your interpretation, whatever. But, I mean, what I kind of felt about it, what I kind of tuned in on in viewing it, again, I was watching it last night, and, what really stood out to me was the story of, a father and daughter, and how there are these 2 generations that are kind of struggling, and how in failing to recognize the new generation, he's failing to recognize his own daughter, right? And she terribly resents him and can't really connect with him. But at the same time, what effort is she making? So I think really kind of at the end of the movie, when, we see him looking out the window, we look away and she's seeing him. She looks out the window. What does she see? I think she does, see him as the Birdman, because in his accidental triumph, I think he does recognize that world, become a part of that world, and she finally understands him. She finally understands her. So I think, in almost like sharing that delusion, I think, the bridge has been gapped. So that's kind of what I think the ending is. I know some people think, oh, he really killed himself. I don't think so. But I think it's a beautiful ending, and, seeing that awestruck face on Emma Stone, I think that's, that is worth 1,000 words. As they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words, and she's great in the film. Edward Norton, great in the film. Michael Keaton, my favorite Michael Keaton performance, no doubt. And the thing is, I mean, I would say absolutely this deserved to win Best Picture, because for one thing, Foxcatcher wasn't nominated, which kind of sucked. I think this and Foxcatcher were 2 of the best movies of the last decade, in my opinion. So absolutely, and I do think Keaton should have won for actor. Fuck you, Eddie Redmayne. Honestly, that theory of everything wasn't all that. My opinion. But isn't it something that this movie, that it's all about actors and egos and recognition and the desperate need for that. That neither of the actors nominated would win. Michael Keaton was nominated. Emma Stone was nominated. Edward Norton was nominated. None of them won. But the picture itself won. The director itself won. So art prevailed above the actors. So I think that kind of speaks a lot to the movie as a whole, and maybe more of a way than I originally kind of thought in wanting Michael Keaton to win so bad. So the art itself prevailed, but the actors are just kind of pawns, I guess, in the larger scheme of things, which I think is true ultimately. So there's that. But Birdman, I think it's an excellent film. Absolutely deserved to win Best Picture. Keaton is amazing. This is a surreal and crazy and funny, moving at a lot of times, unique experience. It really is. I love it. One of the greatest movies of the last 10 years, in my opinion. So that's my review of Birdman, or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this review, give me a thumbs up. Be sure to comment, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff. Visit dare237.com. And until next time, caw, caw.